Welcome back to The Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. What are we going to be talking about today, MAGA Jesse?
Yeah, we got some good stuff because it looks like Tim Walz is going to be running for president, and he's got to maintain that governorship if he wants to stay relevant. So this is going to be, 2028 is already lining up. He's already making the rounds. We'll be discussing the fact that he is doing a tour and all of the details. We are also going to talk about the 40B special election that took place on Tuesday. While Republicans were getting your hopes up, we were telling you the truth here, and we'll go over the results of what happened there. Paul Wickstrom lost by 40 points. Walter Hudson is somehow blaming us for the loss. And then we will be going into DOGE. We'll be talking about that and the spending bill, and then we'll be getting into the post show. I see that we got Tucker91, Mary Kay, Hates MN, and Truth Wins in MN all in the comments section. Appreciate seeing you guys. Make sure to leave a Rumble rant if you want to make sure your comment is read.
This episode,
and we got Napkinate.
And Napkinate.
They just keep coming in.
Okay. Have you ever done the show before? That's how it works. This show is brought to you by Warren Russell, Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Also, we're brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Also joining us for a conversation on DOGE and the CR is my good friend Dave Benner. In fact, I got a book. I got a couple books of his up on my shelf. This one's a good one, Compact of the Republic. That's his first book. Highly recommend that one there. So, I'm going to leave this out here for when he comes on the show. He'll be here at 1:30. All right. Let's pull up the A1 Dawson. This is so interesting. This is CNN. Fake news, CNN. Totally fake news. The title is Tim Walz to launch national tour of town halls and Republican House districts. Okay, can we just stop right here and say he's not officially in as president, but this is official, right? Let's just read through what's going on. When you run for president, it starts with the national tour. It starts with going on all the mainstream media. And in this case, there's a void on the Democrat side. By the way, how hilarious is it? Gavin Newsom's doing a podcast now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And smart on him for starting to get conservatives on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is smart because it's making people see what kind of phony he is. And
you think so?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he's becoming so transparent to everybody, conservatives, liberals. Everybody sees that he's full of it.
Yeah, but he's got to kind of bring on a broad coalition. The fact that he's not afraid to go up against some of these conservative talking heads, I would imagine, looks good with the base, don't you think? Or is it? I haven't watched him, so maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched the episode he did with Charlie Kirk, and he did not come out of it looking good. And he's kind of, if from the left's perspective, they would say you're conceding on certain arguments. They were not happy on the trans issue, and he's sitting there asking for advice from Charlie Kirk the entire time, saying, "How can we do this? How can we do that?" So the left isn't happy with him. The right obviously has already seen through him for the COVID tyrant and everything he's done to California with the homeless, cleaning it up for Xi Jinping in China, but then does nothing for the people of his own state. The fires have been a disaster. That's the reason why he's doing the podcast, to distract people from the disaster that he's leaving people in. And, it looks like he's trying to hand off the reins to Kamala Harris. So, so I think people see right through him, and I think Newsom has shot himself in the foot and has no chance for president. Walz has a better chance at becoming the Democrat nominee than Gavin Newsom at this point.
Well, I disagree with you on that. And I think of it in this regard. He is a candidate who, though he might not appeal to the far left of the base, he does have the bona fides through policy that he's enacted. So despite going on a podcast and saying one thing to Charlie Kirk, they will probably applaud his actual real doings as governor. But the other thing is, he's going to come with such big money and prestige and most likely Silicon Valley money that he might, it's like the Jeb Bush effect. Despite the base rejecting a Jeb Bush, he's a real contender because he's going to have hundreds of millions of dollars in the primary.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's definitely competitive. And the fact that California, when you look at the, the map for how they collect the delegates for the DNC, California is a huge state. So,
right.
When you're thinking about the actual primary, how it would work out and the potential between a Gavin Newsom versus Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom has that California advantage where he'd be getting a lot of delegates. And I'm not sure if they still are a winner takes all. But I believe that California is a winner-takes-all state for their DNC delegates, so that means whoever gets the majority would win. Most likely that would mean it's Gavin Newsom, but maybe not, because the people are so fed up with him in California too. And so, I guess that Tim Walz is leading this tour based on DOGE. That's the Democrats' new optics. They think instead of celebrating certain cuts in government, instead of celebrating that fraud and waste and abuse is being uncovered, they are instead trying to say, let's make the story about the people who are fired. They're trying to bring out veterans and whatnot. They're trying to make a sob story out of this. And strategically, it makes a whole lot of sense for Tim Walz and these people to try to do that. But I think the American people also see through it to a certain extent, because we see that the Democrats and Tim Walz are going to oppose Trump on every single thing. We know that they're not genuinely thinking about their own types of policy, their own way forward. It's simply opposing Trump, and they're against everything that Trump has to do.
Yeah, but Jesse, it's a smarter move than what I see Republicans doing, congressional Republicans, and we'll bring this up when Dave Benner joins us on the show. They're not even empathizing with the people getting fired. They're pretending to be all DOGE while not being all DOGE.
Right.
Because that's what the CR just did, is it funded USAID, and it funds all the things that DOGE is supposed to be going to cut.
Right. Well, we'll see exactly how that's all going to work out, because I'm sure that there's an education budget in this, but it seems as if the Department of Education is going to be abolished. So, there might be money that's appropriate to these agencies, but if the agencies get abolished and there's nothing to give money to by that time anyway, that would just leave extra funds left over to be spent and used on other purposes,
or not, or not spent,
or not
because
spent.
we
Even
can't
better.
spend. What do you got, Dawson?
I'm when it comes down to what the primaries are going to be next time for president, I'm super excited, because I think that the Democrats have to change everything up completely if they want to have another chance. And I'm excited to see.
But they're not going to. That's the thing. All they're going to do is change their optics. They're just going to change how they do TikTok dances. They're not going to change anything about themselves, because they are the they are the system. They're the establishment. They care about propping themselves up for their own personal power. And they've painted themselves into this corner where they can't go against all these different woke ideology groups, and now they're stuck.
That's what I'm saying. So they are painted in a corner right now, but I think that once this next thing comes up, that's their one chance.
Well, they have a chance to break away, right? With someone, let's say Stephen A. Smith, even though he's not perfect, let's say someone like that. I think the Democrats are going to reject him because they don't want to change. I think the Democrat base has, they really haven't come to terms with the fact that Trump won in a landslide. They haven't come to terms with the fact that they lost every single swing state. And this was when the election was completely in their advantage. People didn't even know all of the dirt that was out there on Kamala Harris, because it was a short-run election, and they got to throw Tim Walz out there too. And so Republicans had to act quickly to expose all of these lies, and the fact that he's a habitual liar. On Kamala Harris hiding from the press. She never did one press conference in her entire presidential campaign. But Tim Walz said something recently. I wrote down the quote because I thought it was unbelievable. He said that it just shows how hyperbolic Tim Walz is. He says, Trump is the worst possible business executive that I've ever witnessed. It's unbelievable that he's willing to say something like that. It just proves that he's an unserious person, and that he's opposing Trump and MAGA on every single thing. Is he also saying that he is in support of waste, fraud, and abuse? Apparently, that's what he's going to be making the case for by smoke and mirrors at all of these Republican town halls that he's going to. So by going to these Republican districts strategically, it's a wise move, but it's only going to be filled with propaganda, and he's just trying to deceive voters into not believing their own eyes.
Dawson, hold on. Pull up the A8 here. I was thinking, this is the change optics. Jasmine Crockett. Have you seen her Kendrick Lamar yet?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I've seen
too
much of Jasmine Crockett.
Just go ahead and play this. Does
this have music?
This is how you reach new voters here.
Does this have copywritten music on it? Do you know?
Whoa, what's that?
Does it have copyright music on it?
Oh, son of a yes.
I'll play it.
Well, this is on YouTube. Can we not play it if it's on YouTube?
No.
Wait, why can she play it if we can't?
Yeah,
Are we not playing the volume?
Why can MAGA Mac 4547?
Yes, okay. All right, you got me convinced. Go watch yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually,
it's such a joke.
You know what? Maybe you don't need the music. Just look at this. Look at her in the hall doing the dance. She's trying to do her Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you don't need the music. You get it, right?
Yeah, no, and I saw a clip of Bill Maher. Even Bill Maher and some of the left is fed up with her. And, I've seen some old videos of Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't talk like she's some hood rat when she first got elected. She only talks like that now because she wants to portray a certain character. And the Democrats are happy with that because they know that she doesn't actually want to challenge the establishment. She doesn't actually want to challenge the system. She just wants to talk like that. And Bill Maher was saying, though, he said, could you imagine if Obama started talking like that? If, because one of her quotes is that she said, oh, yeah, I'm just right after she stormed out of Trump's joint speech at Congress, she says, oh, could you just please slap me and wake me the F up? I am just over this. And, Bill Maher was saying, could you imagine Obama talking like that? Could you imagine any serious leader talking like that? And it just shows that, some of these Democrats like her and AOC and these others, it's all performative. These people aren't serious.
Yeah. I think that the next presidential election is almost going to come down to who can the Republicans put up. Because, like, a Tim Walz, a Gavin Newsom, whatever, but Trump probably isn't going to run again, right? And so, what is it going to be, J.D. Vance?
I don't know. The Democrats have been telling me he's just going to run again.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that
there's so many Democrats that are going to look so silly when that comes out. It's like they keep thinking
care.
that, I know, it's ridiculous.
Care.
J.D. Vance is going to be the candidate unless he screws up. But, everything is falling in line for J.D. Vance to be the next GOP candidate. And I think it's basically unavoidable at this point, unless he screws up in a major way to get the MAGA base against him.
He just doesn't have the charisma that Trump does. That's the only thing.
But he's got the eyeshadow.
He does have the eyeshadow. That's true.
Have you ever seen the Kyle Dunnigan impression of Bill Maher?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I can't even do it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's so good.
All right. Back to the article here. Boy, we went on a little squirrel chase there.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Walz is heading back out on the road, this time for a tour of House districts represented by Republicans who have stopped holding in-person town halls amid the raucous reception some of their colleagues have gotten across the country. The Minnesota governor and 2024 vice presidential candidate will start on Friday in Iowa. Why would he be in Iowa?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think here. First in the country?
Well, not anymore for the Democrats because they moved it to South Carolina.
They did move it to South Carolina.
Yeah, so
still Iowa's a big one, though.
Right, it's definitely a big one. It's going to be one of the first.
And
even,
it's a caucus system.
Right, so it's one of the first, regardless of what the Democrats are trying to do with their calendar. But yeah, it's definitely a telltale sign, and I'd imagine that he's going into, her name is slipping my mind, but there's a Iowa congresswoman who always wins by just a few votes every single time. It's a very swing district, so, the other seats in Iowa are all Republican, but there is one district that occasionally goes to the Democrats, so it makes sense that he's going after these swing districts and making the case there. I wish that Republicans were prepared to take on this type of stuff because he's just going to be feeding these people propaganda. But like I said, I actually don't think that this is going to be all that effective in a certain way. It's effective for the Democratic primary. It gives the Democrats something to believe in. But does it do anything for the country at large? I don't think so. I think it's all performative.
All right, so he starts in a district represented by Representative Zach Nunn, then heads across the border to Nebraska for the district represented by Don Bacon, which we both know, and we've talked about Don Bacon on the show. Very close race, not a solid district. Both of whom which won tight races for re-election last year. Walz's team is already planning stops in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Ohio for the coming weeks, with more stops expected to be added. By the way, I think it was Harry Niska's tweeted at him. He's like, well, there's work to be done in Minnesota. I'm like, no, go ahead. You can leave the state.
Yeah.
Walz, we don't need you here. That was the best part of those.
No, but it does show that he doesn't have any interest in actually governing the state. It shows that he is more interested in his own national ambitions than running the state. But I agree that if Tim Walz is out of town, it's probably for the better. And considering that Flanagan is busy campaigning too, I guess she can't really step up to be the governor in certain cases.
Things might actually shape up to be much better in the state of Minnesota with all those bozos running the show.
Yeah.
Given his national profile after his time on the Democratic ticket last year, Walz said he felt obligated to step up. Of course, it's an obligation. It's a duty to step up. There was just a primal scream of folks recognizing what's going on with the Trump administration, their authoritarian tendencies, and how do I read this? This is Tim Walz saying this. Mm-hmm. There was just a primal scream of folks recognizing what's going on with the Trump administration, their authoritarian tendencies. Really? You're telling us about authoritarian tendencies. And what they viewed was a lack of a proper response from their representatives, he told CNN on Wednesday. It was about these Republican representatives recognizing this stuff's really unpopular, so they're going to quit their town halls. These folks need to be heard. They need to be heard, and to be candid with you, Democratic leadership needs to hear them. Walz's plan starts with a post last week on X responding to House Republican leaders who advised their colleagues to stop holding town halls. Republicans have accused those town halls of being packed with paid activists, though those making such accusations haven't well, this is CNN. I'm just not going to read CNN's fake news commentary.
Yeah.
They haven't had any evidence of what is this? I don't know anything about
If
town
the
halls.
evidence was right in front of CNN's face, they would still write the same damn thing. There's no evidence.
I'm sorry. I just don't know. What is the town halls that are stopped being held?
There was a news story last week about Republicans for security concerns shouldn't do town halls. By the way, on this show, we call out both sides. I think a bunch of pussy Republicans are afraid to, face their voters and talk about the things that are really important. So I am not standing up for the Republicans
there was
here.
just someone in one of Brad Finstad's town halls that went a little nuts. I think there was a Democrat who went a little
And
nuts
that
out
happens
there,
too.
and they had to be
That
taken
happens
out.
for sure.
Exactly. It's one of those things I've heard about these Republicans canceling town halls, and optically it's not a good thing at all. You should be able to go and speak to your constituents and hear out their concerns and answer their questions. So it's not good for Republicans to be canceling their town halls. You have to understand, of course, that there's going to be Democrat provocateurs who are going to try to upset you there. But if you're a congressman, shouldn't we be able to expect that type of leadership out of you, that you can stand up and fight that? So
I got a solution. Why don't they just send their APEC rep?
Yeah.
I mean, that's who's calling the shots anyhow, right?
On certain things, right.
Walz says that he's been overwhelmed by the response to that tweet, and his staff has been sifting through what an aide told CNN was hundreds of invitations from local party leaders and candidates asking him to come. Do you really believe that? He said he found that response reassuring after he and Kamala lost to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Quote, I always feared that, should I speak in happy gay Tim Walz or very mad normal Tim Walz? Have you noticed how he's not happy and jolly anymore?
Yeah.
Every time he has to answer the press, he's always that angry Tim Walz that he always has been. Quote, I always feared that they would become apathetic after this last election and just check out, but they are not doing that, Walz said. Yeah, well, it seems like they kind of are doing that. Other than independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who has taken 2 swings of his own through the Midwest in the past month, no major Democratic leaders have been stepping forward with similar kinds of public events. Walz chalked that up in part to his party, quote, trying to find our feet, end quote, but the situation clearly frustrates him. So there you go. Tim Walz starts with the national tour. Let's just be honest. This is what all politicians that want to run on the national stage. Gavin Newsom's doing a podcast. Tim Walz is going and doing, town halls. Well, I'm sure, it'd be kind of fun to actually go to these things and troll him. That'd be fun. What's Alex Stein up to in the next couple months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jesse, I brought this up in the pre-show. It starts with the tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere soon after comes the book.
Yep.
All right. Hot take right here. You heard it here first. Tim Walz is publishing a book.
Yep. That he didn't actually write.
Yeah, he's not writing the book.
He's going to have a ghost author.
He's not writing
There's no
that
way
book.
that he's writing it. Yep. And,
Grok, write me a book on how great I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Grok's like, the page it's one page.
Yep. But, so I'm thinking the only way to actually prevent a Walz presidency from from him going forward to the Democrat primary and having any chance, the best way to block that from happening is by blocking him from power in Minnesota and by taking away the governorship from him. So, the governor's race is going to be very interesting, considering that Walz is distracted and busy with his own national ambitions rather than running the state of Minnesota. Republicans need to put up a strong candidate. So that will be something to keep an eye out for. I want to hit a couple of comments here. I see Billy22 said, so now we are starting to campaign 2 months after taking office. Exactly. It's crazy. Apparently 3 years and 10 months before you would even take office is when you should start running for president, according to Tim Walz. And Phil Candid asked in response to Dawson, who has the charisma of Trump? I think that's a tough question because I don't know if there is anyone in the Republican Party who could create the energy and
But there's someone on the left that's got the charisma. Let's pull up the A2 here, Dawson. This is, if you want charisma, I'll give you charisma. I'll give you charisma right here. This is definitely the charisma we're looking for.
Yeah. Looks like we're frozen.
Who is this?
That's Gwen Walz. That's Tim Walz's wife. That eyes. Those eyes. Oh, my God. It's just so... These people are all weird. Both sides, by the way. It's not just the Democrats.
This is his wife? No.
Yeah, that's his wife.
Oh, okay.
You know, when Tim Walz called the opposite side weird, it's not like he was wrong. It's just that he's wrong to think it's only that side. Like, both sides are weird. Like, how do you look at Mitch McConnell and not go, that guy's kind of weird? The turtle?
Yep.
Is it... Mine is working, was frozen for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks like
some
people want
issues
to
on
just close out and reopen it if it's freezing up on them.
I think we should be hyped for a Walz presidential run, because we're pretty sure he can't win. And think about all of the never Walz stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I'm not necessarily against Tim Walz thinking he can run. I think it's actually kind of hilarious, but
that State Fair booth is gonna go pretty hard. I'm not.
It's gonna be lit.
Yeah.
All right.
And one other, I also saw Bourbon Fox says what's up in here, and I think that's a new name, so we appreciate you tuning in. And KAC2, who is paying for Walz to go to all of these places? I'm a little bit curious too. That you got to wonder where the money would be coming from exactly, because you gotta. It takes money to be able to travel the country and hold all of these town halls. So I would, I'm curious myself to know what kind of fund
probably
and what organization is behind it, because like I said, it takes money to.
I mean, he could do it out of his campaign finance account.
Yeah,
so.
and there was one other story. I don't know if people had heard about this, because I just figured out about it yesterday, and I don't know how I missed the news. Apparently, there was a Democrat congressman who died the day after Trump's speech. Did you hear about this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. He
4%
Trump is killing off these Democrats. His speech killed off one of these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, sure.
But this is a guy that he just got into office. He was the former mayor of Houston. He just got in there. He'd been in there for like 2 months. So it just shows that. And the person who was in the office before him. Oh man, her name is slipping my mind. She was in the office before him, and she died in office. So now, another congressman from Texas died.
Oh, Sheila Jackson.
Yeah, Sheila Jackson Lee. Yep, she was the one who held that seat before him. And obviously, they felt he's the next in line. He's the one who's allowed to do it. But they're putting in these elderly people who aren't up for the job. And you got to put people who are competent. And it's just sad that they would stick some guy in there who has all of these health issues. If a guy is dying, he shouldn't be in Congress.
That's a big one for the article said that Bernie Sanders was also doing the rounds or whatever. Dude, he's gonna have to get like a protege or something, because nobody is gonna want to vote for another.
Well, remember in the 2020 campaign, he fell in the shower, and there was a big deal of
He's of the age you fall in the shower, right?
Yeah.
Bernie is 83.
That's crazy.
He's doing relatively well for an 83-year-old.
And he just got reelected.
Go hang out. Why go play video games? What are you doing?
Because this is their thing. Like, they literally their whole life is being that senator. Like that. And that wasn't the design of this country. They weren't supposed to be career politicians.
Well, at the design of the country, people were dying at 40. So a little bit different, but
not different in the sense that these guys were farmers. They were lawyers. They were businessmen, inventors.
Politician wasn't a job.
That wasn't a job. It wasn't supposed to be a permanent thing.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to the next segment. This segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. All right, 40B election. Let's pull it up. A1. This happened Tuesday night. The results came out around 9 o'clock time frame. And on that first one, just drop down menu. It's only 140B. Yep, there you go. So Paul Wickstrom, the Republican candidate, 3,966 votes, which, by the way, was about 46% of the Republican vote in the last general election. So as we said in the show, if he was to get half of his voters out, half of the Republican voters out, and the Democrats, like in 50B in Bloomington in 2016, only got 24% of their people out, then he stands a chance to win. Now, you and I both kind of knew that Democrats weren't taking this one for granted, Clearly they didn't. They actually had a larger percentage turnout. So they had like roughly 15,000 voters in the general election. So they turned out, come on, Jake, do the quick math. That's 60%?
Yeah, around that.
60%.
Less than 2/3. Yeah, so around 60.
Yeah, so 60%. And so anyhow, so the margin actually was wider because remember we reported it's a 65-35 district.
Right.
It turned out to be
that was the results of that was the results of the general election in 2024 with 65-35. So what's unbelievable is, Republicans had spent all of this money, all of this effort, all of this door knocking and whatnot, only to underperform what they did in the 2024 general election, probably with a lot less effort and a lot less door knocking, a lot less things going on. So, it tells me that some of these voters, they were probably door knocked to death, to where some of them are getting annoyed with the fact that they're being door knocked. And this is a Democrat district. That's why I was telling people, don't get your hopes up. The Republicans totally let you down. The Republicans were the ones who told you, oh, let's pay attention to 40B, this Democrat district that we don't have a chance of winning in, but let's pretend like we do because it makes us feel better in the time being. And instead of dealing with 54A, where they threw away 21 ballots where we could win against Brad Tabke, instead the Republicans said, let's focus on 40B. And then they caved on the question of quorum. And then they caved on the question of how many votes it takes to pass a bill. The Republicans in the House shot themselves in the foot, and they're the reasons why it is now a tie 67-67 in the House. The House Republicans had a golden opportunity to give themselves power, but they chose not to. And Brad Ganser, $5 Rumble Rant, says, I am not sure what is worse, the epic waste of money or the futility of the operation. And I have to wonder myself, because all of this money was spent, and they underperformed what was done in 2020. The Democrats obviously were going to be turning out for this one. It determines whether or not the GOP has control. We wouldn't expect a GOP district to ever flip and go to the Democrats, even if the Democrats put in all this effort. Why? Because the base in that district doesn't, align with that party. So the Republicans gave false hope to people, and a lot of them are looking real dumb right now.
Okay, so let me push back just a little bit on what you're saying, because I don't think it's a complete waste. If you think of it
was pretend. That's why
pretend.
These state representatives are going out there.
I agree with that. But it's not a complete waste in the sense that if you look at political elections as a sporting event, let's just use football in this case. If you were to play football only once every 2 years, it's going to be rough. Teams got to train together and play regularly to be a well-functioning team. And so politics is generally, like political elections, is one every 2 years, right? So this gives an opportunity for some of your team to kind of perfect and hone their craft, okay? And in this case, this is a turnout election, so work on base turnout, okay? So in that sense, I don't think it's the biggest deal. It also makes your Democrat opponents have to spend money on it because obviously if they did nothing, the Democrats would take it for granted and they would just pick this election off and not have to raise any money. So that would be the arguments against. And then I think you're also getting some new people who are new to campaigning that kind of get some real-world experience. Even if it's a loss, they get real-world experience that's translatable to a more winnable district like 54A. Okay,
right.
That's the opposite side. Now,
I'd agree with you on that because I agree that Paul Wickstrom should run. And I agree that, there's all kinds of benefits that you get being able to build up a list, being able to have these voters for the future to be able to say during a governor or a U.S. Senate campaign in a statewide race where it's not dependent upon Roseville, where it's dependent upon the entire state, then absolutely those people come into play, and it's important to be able to be in contact with them. And it's good that Paul Wickstrom ran. I'm not saying that the Democrats should be given a cakewalk here. My problem is with the Republicans who convinced people that we were going to have a chance, that we had a chance at this thing, only for the Republicans to lose by 40 points. These Republicans should not have been lying to their voters.
All right, so pull up, what is it, of course, Walter Hudson pipes in.
Yeah.
B3 Dawson. Walter Hudson pipes in. Actually, he's responding to, is this Brian Strasser?
Yeah.
Yeah, career Action for Liberty hater, Brian Strasser, by the way, who runs Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus.
We think it's a he/him. He calls himself a he/him, but
he's a he/him.
He looks like a Danny Nadeau. He doesn't look like a man to me.
By the way, Brian Strasser and the Gun Owners Caucus literally gave money to the Democrat Party. They bought a booth at, they say, multiple conventions at Democrat conventions to try to change people's minds at the Democrat conventions. Literally, that money goes to the general fund of the Democrats so they can spend it to get Democrats elected. Like last I checked, Action for Liberty never did that. So anyhow, he says, so did Action for Liberty get out? And remember, this is after getting their ass handed to them by 40 points. He writes, so did Action for Liberty get out and door knock in 40B to help elect Paul Wickstrom? Make phone calls? This is my district. I was door knocked 5 times, a couple times by the campaign, once by the party BPOU, once by the Minnesota Family Council, and once by the DFL. And Walter, by the way, unprompted, like Action for Liberty didn't weigh in on his post, unprompted because Walter can't get us out of his mind. Of course they didn't. Why would they? They're not interested in Republican victory, Republican majorities, or suppressing the power of Democrats. In fact, their success is tied directly to Democrat success. A4L shares the Democrats' goal of opposing Republicans. Think about this. One might look at this. Dawson, you're kind of a neutral guy. Might look at this and go, actually, isn't Action for Liberty the smart one that said we're not going to win this race, right? So we're not going to waste money in door knocking.
Well, and also,
and you guys did.
If we did anything, it wouldn't have been enough for them anyway. But even if we did something, they would blame us for the loss. They'd say, well, obviously Paul Wickstrom's attachment to a radical group like Action for Liberty definitely hurt his chances. So there is no winning scenario for Action for Liberty in these people's minds.
Wait, hold on. Maybe they're making the argument that if Action for Liberty got in, they would have closed the 40-point margin.
I guess so. They think that Action for Liberty is so effective that they can flip Democrat
40
districts.
points.
Wow.
What argument are you making here, Wednesday Walter?
Yeah.
That was the question that I was going to ask is any amount of money able to like surpass a difference like this?
It's what has to happen in this district because it's a Democrat district.
You need 10,000 Republicans to turn out.
It's hard to control the opposition's turnout, but there are ways to do it, like they call it voter suppression, but essentially giving people reasons not to vote for their own candidate. Okay, this is what actually Democrats did infamously with Trump. Remember that commercial of the woman telling her husband, "Yeah, I'm voting the right way," and then she votes against. That was like trying to suppress. Suppress is the wrong term here, but trying to get people not to vote the way their conscience tells them, right? Yeah. So that would be one play.
Well,
but
and another thing
that
is
could be
ballots
done
in
with
hand.
money.
You know, ballots in hand. You have to, there's a lot of people where they say, oh, yeah, I guess I support you. I want lower taxes and yada, yada, yada. But are they going to come out and vote? No, they're busy on election day. They got work. They got this and that to do. And so it's just not going to happen. So I know that mail-in ballots are not ideal, but that's definitely got to be a strategy for people to be able to pick up those votes, because if you tell them, how about you just fill out your ballot right now and we'll get it in for you, people are much more willing to do that.
Yeah.
That's not good, though.
So maybe if your focus was on hiring really good operatives, like high-dollar operatives, and they had to chase down all the Republican ballots, but the reality is you're never going to get 100% of Republicans to vote in something. And in this case, with these numbers, assuming the Democrats had their turnout like that, you needed 100%. No, go back to that.
That'll take me half a second to pull up.
Yeah,
it was 9,000. I take that back.
Well, and that's the thing.
There's even what the Democrats turned out, which was 60%,
over
was
100,
more than 100% of the Republicans in that district.
Right, exactly.
So
Paul
almost nothing could have won that district.
Right.
Which, by the way, once again makes Action for Liberty kind of smart for not getting involved.
Right. In 2024, Paul Wickstrom got 8,460 votes.
Yeah.
So that means that even if he had 100% of the people who turned out to vote for him in the general election with Trump on the ballot and everything else going on, even with all of that going on, those votes wouldn't have beaten David Gottfried. And it tells us that the Democrats had no fear about this. They understood that they could put up a radical, that the people of Roseville are willing to go along with it. I mean, let's be honest, these people are sheep. The Democrats really don't care. As long as they feel like their identity checklist is being hit, they're willing to go along with it. So all of these Republicans who are being bitter at Action for Liberty for the fact that they just lost by 40 points after getting everyone's hopes up, let's be honest, that Walter Hudson and Josh Heinzman, I know they went out and did some door knocking. I wonder how many doors they actually knocked. But that in mind, I really doubt that they convinced a single voter. I really doubt that they got one voter to flip their mind, or they got a single voter who was not planning on voting to vote. Right. I bet all they did was, get someone who was conservative that said, oh, yeah, I like Paul Wickstrom, and they call it a success. But is it a success when they lose by 40 points after telling everyone that they were going to win? I see S-Studden89 says, HRCC members sold the false sense of hope to fundraise. None of those reps could have had the possibility. Could have possibly thought that they were going to win. They were lying to raise money to use against endorsed candidates, as they do. And I'm sure the HRCC was collecting money from the members of the House, and I'm sure that there were people, I'm sure they had ads and whatnot out there to get from the grassroots as well, to tell the grassroots, we can win this thing. And same thing with the candidates. I guess they were maybe convincing some of the representatives, oh, we could win this thing with your help. But are we supposed to trust the HRCC? And especially not after the last few election cycles where they use it against endorsed candidates. So S-89 is right on with the critique.
This show's called The Truth Hurts, by the way. Sometimes it's hurtful to tell you the truth about these things, but there are certain elections, certain districts that just aren't going to go the way you want them to go. It's just a sad reality. By the way, I just thought of this. One other interesting argument against Walter here, Wednesday Walter, that is, using his logic, where was he in the Senate District 60 election?
Yeah.
Does he not want Republicans to get elected?
No,
and the reality is what Walter will never tell you is, we can't win in Minneapolis, so they didn't spend any time campaigning in Minneapolis.
No, I think he, at the very least, he posted something about Abigail Walters.
Yeah,
so
but
I think, but I don't want to misstate it. I think he was there. I don't want to.
Yeah, but he definitely didn't put the effort in there.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Where she got 9% of the vote, I think, in that Senate district.
Correct.
Race.
Yeah, it's just like that's the reality. Is you're smarter off if you want to survive in politics for any length of time. You're smarter off saving your resources for a better fight. Right.
And 54A was the fight that the Republicans didn't give us. Action for Liberty was on top of it the entire way. The Truth Hurts was on top of it the entire way. But instead of giving the Republicans a fight where they could actually win, they let everyone down, said that Brad Tapke could be seated. They do not care about election integrity, and they underperformed the results of the general election in an election where they were telling us we were going to win. It's a joke.
All right, this next segment is brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Joining me is a friend from college, so multiple decades I've known him. Actually, freshman year of college. Truth be known, that's when we first met. So we've been bros pretty regularly since about sophomore year. We just knew each other freshman year, but sophomore, been hanging out. Benner is a great guy. David Benner. Okay, we call him Benner. He was also called Metal Dave in college too. That was his next group of friends, but the original, the OGs, we just called you Benner. But anyhow, David wrote a book called Compact of the Republic, The League of States and the Constitution. That was his first book. And then also his more recent book, he's got a third one in there too, but I don't have it, I think, at my desk. The third one and the most recent one is Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism. Go check out these books. You could probably buy them on Amazon, or I'm guessing he owns davidbetter.com. Hey, buddy, do you own your own name as a website? Is that where people should buy the book?
Yeah, I have davebenner.com as well. And yeah, man, I miss the college days because
I can't hear him.
I hear him.
Oh, am I?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, maybe Jake is disconnected.
Testing, Jake.
I wasn't plugged in on my end.
Okay, so Jake, all I was saying is, yeah, I own davebenner.com, and I miss those college days because I actually had hair back then, and I'm still Metal Dave. I got Dream Theater right here, so let's go.
Wait, so do you own davebenner.com or David?
davebenner.com.
See, this is what got me going as I started reading your name, and I never call you David. Only your dad calls you David, but I'm sure you want to sound a little more official because it is David on your birth certificate. Right?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, we don't even know. People think I'm Jacob, but it's just Jake. That's my birth name. All right, I want to bring you on this segment. The segment's called "Is DOGE Dead?" And the reason I bring this up, you and I, we've known each other since college when we were holding up Bomb Saddam signs, right? So we're recovering neocons. And I think, other than the stupidity of our understanding of foreign politics back in college 20-some years ago, we always kind of were very libertarian-minded, certainly got those bona fides during the Ron Paul era. You actually were a Ron Paul supporter in 2007, and I remember making fun of you because you had that bumper sticker on it. And then after I had made fun of you, I went overseas and thought, oh, man, this guy's right about a lot of things. And so I was obviously a big Ron Paul supporter in the 2012 election. And you and I have been very vocal about things libertarian world. You actually have used your volunteer time to work directly with the LP. Now in Tennessee, you've abandoned us Minnesotans in our wonderful winter weather. So I thought it'd be great to bring you on this segment because, the way I look at it, the libertarians, many of them voted for Trump, right? And I think for the same reasons that I did, seeing that there are some really good issues that Trump had, and Kamala was dead wrong on them, and just generally seeing the world as we need a big course correction. And Trump obviously represented basically a disruptor to the status quo. I think everyone understands Kamala Harris did not represent that at all. So a lot of people like me, I don't know about you, but a lot of people like me ended up voting for Donald Trump, despite some of the problems I've had with him in the past. And then the first month goes on, and I literally...
The libertarians had a joke candidate, so it's not like libertarians had a real option.
No, of course not, right.
The best option was to go with Trump.
Exactly, yeah. The Chase Oliver was a terrible candidate. So, we did a show a couple weeks ago, and it was entitled, Is Trump going to go down as one of the best presidents? Because based off a lot of the moves he was making early on, which, by the way, moves were basically just sound bites, essentially, words, it seemed like he could be setting himself up for a great presidency. Here we are a couple weeks later, and I'm going, wait a second. You're attacking Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie actually wants to shrink government, actually doesn't want to continue on with endless budget deficits and adding to the national debt, and you want to primary the best representative in the U.S. Congress? I got to ask you, and by the way, over an issue, the continuing resolution, which funds USAID. So I got to ask you, Dave, is DOGE dead before it even really began?
I don't know, man, but I couldn't agree with you more. The first few weeks of the Trump administration were beyond what I expected, and the dismantling of USAID was the best part of it in my eyes. But the last week or two have been abysmal, not just in the CR, but this Epstein files revelation, which is completely a scam and how they've dealt with that, and the fact that assistance and support's being resumed to Ukraine after Trump sat there and grilled Zelensky and said, stop gambling with millions of lives and gambling with World War III. That's the best thing that we could have possibly heard in a true America First context. But yeah, the disconnect between DOGE and the U.S. Congress is so crazy. And for Trump to go after this guy, regardless of my personal beliefs, I think it's a serious miscalculation. And whoever is whispering in his ear does not understand and vastly underestimates the loyalty of Massey's followers. I mean, I saw diehard MAGA people like Scott Adams and Matt Walsh out there saying, no, this is stupid. I trust Thomas Massie, and this was a bad idea. So you have Elon Musk out there basically lecturing Trump's cabinet about the issue of debt. He went on Rogan, reiterated the same things, but we're not seeing it from Congress. And Dave Smith had the best take on this when he said, if Washington had a tagline, it's now is not the time, because now is never the time to stand on your principles. You always have to continue these ludicrous omnibus bills, CRs, spending bills. It's really unfortunate.
Well, that's actually a great point. So let me add the context there. What's happening right now in Washington, D.C., is, and this is even Trump's opinion, is like, we can't do this now. We're going to enact our budget. We're going to finally have those 12 separate budget bills at the end of the fiscal year in September. But we can't do it now, right? We can't possibly implement these policies now. We have to do it at the right time. And I don't know, man. I'm just like, fool me 865 times, shame on somewhere. It's got to be shame on me, right? So I've seen this game play out so many times. We got a Rumble rant. Let's go ahead and read that.
Let's see. Failed Can, $5 Rumble rant says, let's see. It is difficult for me to take seriously the commentary of a Packer and Bears fan. Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota. Thomas Massie is a hypocrite. I agree with you on the last part there on Thomas Massie.
Shots fired.
And I've got an interesting theory.
Okay.
I think that Trump is going to endorse Thomas Massie by the time 2026 comes around. I think the hatchet will be buried, and they are going to move on. Trump is just pushing him on this right now because, otherwise a government shutdown is going to be blamed on Trump.
Well, it seems like there's going to be a government shutdown, but the Democrats are doing it. By the way, do you know this is the argument? This is the argument right now in Washington, D.C. Republicans want a 100-page continuing resolution. Let me just rephrase what the continuing resolution is. It's basically Biden-level spending, so they want to continue that until September, and all they want to do is cut $13 billion to non-defense discretionary, but they're going to add another $6 billion to the defense spending because, we don't spend enough in defense. All right? So that's all they're doing. By the way, I know $13 billion is a lot of money in the state of Minnesota. It's like, what do we spend, $1 billion a minute? I think something like that in the federal government. It's something ludicrous.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple billion a day, whatever it is. It's like nothing in the federal budget. So that's what they're proposing. And the Democrats are saying, well, we're not going to give you the votes unless you give us a clean CR, which means just the same exact thing, no reduction of $13 billion or added $6 billion. Like, that's the big conversation in Washington, D.C. Not actually implementing DOGE reforms, not actually balancing the budget, not actually paying down the debt. It's, are we going to have a clean CR, or are we going to have a CR that's mostly the same thing, just with a minuscule little cut?
Yeah.
Wow, we're winning so much here, aren't we?
Yep. Well, so Dave, I guess we'll let you answer on the people have skepticisms on you because of your support of the Packers. And let's see, Tucker91 was also asking a question of you too. He says, Dream Theater, didn't they just release a new album? So we'll let you hit on both of those.
Yeah, Dream Theater did release a new album. It's called Parasomnia. It's awesome. I promise I'm not paid for this. I'm just a huge fan of them. As far as being a Packer fan, what can I say? I don't really think it relates to my views on this, but fair enough. There's a healthy middle. What was it called again? What's the region called? The Midwest. There's a rivalry in the Midwest. I've been a Southerner for too long now.
Oh, no. Did you really forget what the Midwest is called? Oh, my God.
It's
how
flyover.
dare you.
You guys are just
how dare you?
Flyover.
Whatever.
Rocks and cows.
By the way, I do have Paul Tucci asking, but are you an owner like me?
Yeah, I do have one stock. I bought it in like 2012 or something. So yeah, I technically am. It does allow me voting rights and the ability to buy discounted merchandise every year. So I've never taken advantage of that yet, though.
I tell you what, Jesse, all these rich, wealthy sports teams owners, I mean, I can't believe it. We're surrounded by these guys. All right, so tell us a little bit more about the inside the libertarian ranks. Our show kind of covers a little bit of libertarian ranks, but also the MAGA ranks. I'm trying to keep a little balancing act here, but it seems like there's a major split over Massey, and it seems like you believe Massey might come out ahead on this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Trump's done this before. People forget that Trump said almost the same statement about Massey in 2020. Some people did bring this up. And since then, there's been two primary challengers to Massey. In fact, in 2024, it was two different challengers. He just destroyed them with 75.9% of the overall primary vote. And that's with AIPAC throwing $400,000 to try to stop him. I know Trump's the most popular Republican. He has a huge cult of personality behind him, but I don't think it's going to be easy for him to dislodge Massey, and it's such a stupid and futile fight. As far as the libertarian and MAGA movement, I agree with your assessment. I think it was really fair I do believe like a large amount of libertarians did support Trump because his agenda was generally more libertarian friendly than Harris, despite some disagreements. And hey, like Jesse kind of alluded to, our candidate did take a bullhorn and say politics and gender are non-binary as part of his campaign. So yeah, I totally understand why people did not want to support that guy. I didn't.
Oh man, they screwed it up. And he was like a COVID mask guy, and like I think he was pro-vaccine or something like that. It was just insanity.
Yeah, okay. He was pushing the COVID propaganda regardless. Sorry, continue.
So DOGE is what gave me so much hope. I mean, I can't tell you how much everywhere I was going, I was shouting from the mountaintops how exciting this is. And you're right, Elon Musk on his X account, he is literally posting videos of Milton Friedman. I love videos of Milton Friedman. Friedman got a lot right. He's he's talking about Ron Paul on a regular basis and lecturing on how big of the problem of the debt is, which, by the way, he did even within the last couple of days. So I love everything about DOGE, and I think he's right on point. But yet, at some point in time, although now's not the time, right? But some point in time, we actually have to see this stuff being implemented. Otherwise, it's a con, is it not?
Every time, and there's always a different excuse. In the wake of 9/11, it was we have to crack down on these sleeper cells and national security, and we need the Patriot Act, then we need to create the DHS. After the 2007 to 2008 financial meltdown, hey, TARP is the only way we can bail people out. We have to get all these loans out. There's always a different excuse. They generate these supposed nightmares, but the real nightmare is debt. The real threat is debt and not DOGE. DOGE was uncovering a lot of the scandals, and USAID being primary among them. And then this bill finances a department that's already been dismantled. It makes no sense. I think a lot of MAGA falling in line with this, not all of them, but a lot of them, is really indicative of Trump's dynamic cult of personality around him, that if you differ from him, you're seen as the other and you're portrayed as a Democrat. They're calling Thomas Massie essentially a Democrat right now.
Call him Liz Cheney.
And that's the most preposterous. Right. To call Thomas Massie, of all people, Liz Cheney. This is a guy that won't take AIPAC money. He's never voted for a war. And it's just ludicrous. Trump picked the wrong fight. I won't say there's nothing redeemable about Trump, but I don't know. Massie has a loyal, devoted base. Libertarians are a niche part of the political dynamic in Washington, but I still think it's a mistake.
Okay.
One thing on Massie, I didn't know about this until recently, but he voted against, and he was voting with the Democrats to stop emergency powers being used against the border. So, Trump was trying to use all of these funds and building the wall and trying to secure the southern border. Thomas Massie was voting with the Democrats. He's, I don't know if he's one of those open border libertarians, but and considering, that he voted for a previous continuing resolution under Kevin McCarthy and Joe Biden, it makes me wonder, is he actually genuine? I don't know. I like most of the votes that Thomas Massie does, but he's one. I think he's disingenuous. I don't know if I trust that he's. I don't know.
So Massie is not an open border libertarian. I can't speak to the particular vote you're talking about, but Trump was wrong when he said that Massie has always supported CRs in the past. The only CR he's ever supported was one that didn't go into law under McCarthy. He voted for one that would have cut discretionary spending by 8%. He's explained this continually on his Twitter, and all the other CRs, the ones that did pass, he voted against. So that was disingenuous by Trump.
Yeah, and we called him out for voting for that CR. In fact, he was cozying up to Kevin McCarthy and then disingenuously said, well, I didn't realize what the Matt Gaetz of the world were doing, and if I would have known, I would have joined them.
Yeah, and I think it just cut future
stumping
spending
for McCarthy on the House floor. So
right.
I don't buy that. So
I think it cut future spending, not current spending. So I think it was just cutting the growth in which the spending.
Well,
was
I agree, but
place.
I think I disagree with his vote on it. But yeah, Trump was wrong saying that he votes for these things all the time. That was the only one, and he voted for the debt ceiling increase too. Two things that we went after. So Massie's mostly consistent, and in this case, doesn't that just show he's leaps and bounds above and beyond the rest of these people? He's obviously fallible, right? He did vote for those things, but way better than everyone else.
And also, he's had a lot of personal stuff going on in his life too. He just lost his wife, right, within the last year. So
yeah, but what does that have to do with it?
I'm just saying that he's got a lot going on in his life. It's that I'm just saying. I'm not bringing it up for any particular reason.
Well,
I'm
then
just saying that it's going on.
That was really weird, Jesse.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my broader point is I don't
You
have
think
a
he's
broader
got better
point.
things to do?
No, I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe he's not spending as much time in D.C. that he wasn't. I don't know.
Well, I actually think it'd be better if he doesn't spend so much time in D.C. There's a crazy thing that happens to people out in D.C. What were you going to say, Dave?
No, I wasn't going to say anything in particular. I mean, I generally agree. There's some things that I have disagreed with Massie on, very few. He's pro-IP. I don't believe in IP. He's also said I won't repeal the Jones Act when Justin Amash tried to introduce a bill that did that. That died in committee, but I'm against the Jones Act. But these are kind of periphery issues that most Americans don't care about. He has been the biggest stalwart against spending, debt, the extension of the military-industrial complex, and foreign lobbies, including the Israel lobby. People talk about Russian influence in the U.S., but guess who really has it? It's Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah, I mentioned Thomas Massie to a group of guys the other day, and the first thing that popped up in their heads is, yeah, all his kids have ARs, because they can see that Christmas card, that infamous Christmas card where his whole family's got a bunch of ARs. I'm like, yeah. Doesn't that pretty much tell you his politics? Like, isn't that our politics, right? Is that not what we? Isn't he like the original DOGE, the original MAGA, the original MAHA, right? Like, isn't he?
No.
You don't think so?
No, Thomas Massey is not MAGA. No.
You don't think he's like America first? He's not an America first guy?
Obviously not. He's the kind of person, free trade. We're going to get run over by communist China in the name of libertarianism. It's a joke.
Well, I agree with free trade, by the way.
If real free trade, I'm in support of too.
The extension of protectionism, let's just blockade our entire country so no foreign trade can come in, and that will encourage domestic industry. That's the backward model. That's the America last model. Americans benefit immeasurably from Chinese products, textiles, electronics, etc.
We don't benefit from Chinese tariffs, though, so if we're going to be tariffed by China, the least we can do is have it back at them.
Well, that's what makes it a complex issue for sure, is that, yes.
Right, I'm saying you only do it
reciprocally. It's not fairness. There's no fairness to it, but at the same point, we do want
that's why the libertarians would get us run over. The China's favorite political party is the Libertarian Party.
Trump's favorite American forerunner is Alexander Hamilton, and I think he ran the hell over us.
Yeah.
Is that really true? I didn't know that.
Well, the entire America's system is what Trump and Bannon's economic policy is. It's
I thought you meant like
banking, tariffs.
I thought you meant like he had admired him like publicly or said something about it. But you just saying
I think he has. I know that Bannon has explicitly. Same with Henry Clay. I'm not sure about Trump. Doesn't get into the theoreticals too much, but we can disagree on trade, Jesse, and that's fine. But I'm just saying. I don't. What I'm saying is like Thomas Massey endorsed Donald Trump this election, even though despite all the issues with him, despite the fact that Trump did that, he did in 2024.
Okay, I'll look into it then, because I'm not aware of Thomas Massey endorsing Trump. I never saw him do that.
But he's wandered too far off the reservation, so a lot of MAGA doesn't know. I mean,
right, and the big thing was that he was supporting Ron DeSantis, which I don't think Ron DeSantis was a better choice for liberty than Donald Trump. It was obvious that it got personal.
Agreed.
Yeah,
as it often does. I mean, DeSantis's campaign was a nightmare. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I wanted like some good new blood, but obviously, well, we covered that enough. We don't need to rehash it. So, I guess my question for you, Jesse, then is, you even admit that Trump's wrong on this issue, right? So, I'm not ready to just say.
I think he's going to come after the other rhinos too. It's not just stopping at Massey. It's just Massey was the first one who got in the way. He's going to be coming after these other people too.
But what did Massey get in the way of, though? It's something that Trump is wrong on. Right,
because it's one of those things where the alternative is worse. The alternative is the Democrat plan, where it's a clean CR. And
no. That's the false dichotomy we're given. It doesn't have to be that way.
I know. I'm just saying that it's the false dichotomy, but that's the world that these politicians live in.
I know, but Trump, if he's got all this power and influence, which he clearly does, why doesn't he use that for something good? This is the thing, okay?
And this show's called the truth. Spend all the money.
This show's called The Truth Hurts, okay? This might be a hurtful truth, but and I'm not saying I'm there yet, but at some point you can only dangle the Epstein files, the JFK files, DOGE, and all this stuff out here so long before I'm going to go, wait a second, I don't see it. Where is it? The rubber hasn't met the road yet. Like, where is it before I say, isn't this just a con? And so the first chance that we had at implementing DOGE is this right here. And they didn't do it. They're fully funding USAID. They're also fully funding Planned Parenthood, right? Where's the cuts? Where is the things that we were believed at least weeks ago we were going to get? Sorry, what were we going to say, Benner?
Just that the JFK files are on a hard drive, an FBI hard drive that's been splintered into 1,000 pieces and scattered to the winds. That's where they are.
Yeah, and I think most of us know that what it's going to do is it's going to implicate the government being behind the JFK assassination. They don't want that out there.
I'm not, to be clear, I'm not even implicating Pam Bondi or Kash Patel. I really like Kash Patel and most of what I heard from him, by the way. But it's clear that those agencies, these are newcomers to Washington, and the power of the deep state and its siloed departments within the deep state still have immeasurable power. And there's a cover up somewhere on it. And it's hard to know exactly where, but it's pretty clear that they weren't able to release this. I'll hold out on the MLK stuff and the assassination stuff. We haven't heard that much about that, but it sure seems like a scam, the whole Epstein files thing.
Okay, so this is actually a really interesting point. All right. My argument on Trump's first term was that the swamp only grew, okay? And so, he did run and drain the swamp, even though that wasn't the terminology used for the second term. At some point, we want to see you actually drain the swamp. It seems to me that he's the guy, and I would say Elon too, because Elon is in some regards almost untouchable. Even if Tesla's stock drops 40%, I think he's going to be just fine, right? So these are the guys that actually implement these monumental reforms. So I'm just confused. Were you lying this time about actually wanting to do it? Do you lack the intestinal fortitude to do it? Are they threatening your life and they'll kill you if you do it? Like, what? Why don't we actually have the government we're supposed to have at this point?
My best assertion is that Trump's a showman. Trump's a salesman. He's pretty darn good at it. He's really damn relatable. I think that the McDonald's thing and the garbage truck thing were the best populist campaign stunts I've ever seen in American politics, at least in my lifetime. And he's not really beholden to particular ideologies. It's a lot of who's surrounding him, and a lot of people that are surrounding him are pretty good. Some are really bad. And we'll just get an amalgamation of policies because of that. And spending is the most bipartisan thing in Washington for the last century. So, and none of this, by the way, is an argument for Kamala Harris over Trump, by the way. I would still prefer Trump.
Yeah, she was way worse.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Benner, is like a lot of us just voted for Trump because the alternative was so bad. There was an argument, and I've said it many times on the show, there was an argument for Kamala because if the ship is going to sink, let it be my enemy steering that ship, right? And in this case, if they're literally going to continue on with $2 billion of deficit spending every year, which is going to be financed by the Fed artificially creating money out of thin air and buying up U.S. treasuries, and by the way, so is Japanese and so are institutions and hedge funds buying these treasuries, well then we're not going to have prosperity in the future because debt and money printing is not a path to prosperity. So if Trump's just going to do those same things, it almost would be better if Kamala is going to do it. Now, that's just one issue. Trump has seemed to solve the border crisis, which was a legit crisis. So it seems like that has been, for the most part, solved. I'm hopeful that he will actually end the war in Ukraine, because if he doesn't, boy, is that a black eye on him after the statements he's made. But I'm hopeful on that, and that's a monumental issue. And, he's doing a much better job protecting the First Amendment, although I would. I know what you're going to on that one. Okay, but better than Kamala, which was a legit threat. But the people that would disagree with me are green card non-citizens that are trying to protest the war in Gaza. But other than that, far better than what Kamala and Biden would do. I mean, a judge in Missouri said Biden was the largest abuse of the First Amendment in the history of the United States. We know this firsthand. At Action for Liberty, their Facebook page was literally removed from the internet at the behest of the White House, right? So those three issues, and those were the real issues that I was voting for Trump. That gives me some hope. But it really does, in many regards, come back to the debt. Like, if we're just going to fund this behemoth, this swamp, this deep state, well, nothing's ever going to change in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I mean, the debt payments at this point are bigger than the Pentagon's budget. It's more than $1 trillion. It's insane and unsustainable. And you look through the annals of history, no countries recover once they load themselves with this much debt proportionately. So I am terrified of that. And nothing tells me any force within Washington, except for Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and maybe Elon Musk, are willing to let it stop. it's just getting so preposterous. And, the Republicans were perfectly fine with the CARES Act and printing, 45% of the dollars that exist today in basically a single year. So I'm terrified of that. There's some things that are non-political that have me real white-pilled. I mean, homeschooling's at an all-time high, essentially. Gun ownership's at an all-time high. The corporate media is basically almost dead. Trump is responsible a lot for, hastening that, as is Joe Rogan and all the podcasters. So, it's just a mixture of dynamics right now that are affecting the country, and some are good and some are bad.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. I mean, I'm going to still be very frustrated at this current battle, but I'm not ready to jump off the ship yet. And I do want to be very optimistic and hopeful that Trump solves some of these big issues. But I will say this, I don't like being conned. I don't like liars. And, certainly Trump is getting backlash on the Massey issue. He's getting backlash on the Epstein stuff. And you can only do this so much and dangle these carrots out in front of us and not actually produce before you're going to have some mutiny in your own ranks inside the MAGA movement.
Well, he's got 3 more budgets to pass.
Yeah.
It's gonna go on.
But
this is a continuing
in September,
fight.
It's not the time. September's not the time to.
It never will be. He'll outspend Biden's last term. I'll bet anyone.
I know, it's sad. It seems like it. Well, certainly it says if you look at the basically what was it, the debt limit vote that they had a couple weeks ago, that they were on pace to do that. But it's not the time now. We have to have a veto-proof Senate, and we also have to have all 9 justices on the Supreme Court. And the moon can't be in a waning crescent; it's got to be in a waxing crescent. So the Mars has to be in the eastern sky. So until that happens, is not the time to actually cut 0.5% of the growth of government. Then we can actually do that. We can finally cut 0.5% of the growth of government. Although we can't touch the Israel budget. That's off limits, right? We can't touch
sacred cows, man. Sacred cows. As long as Elise Stefanik and Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio are in there, and as long as Miriam Adelson gives Trump $100 million, that will never be constrained.
Yeah. It's like you say that. It's like, and just think how much worse it was on the other side. Like Kamala, that's an empty vessel. Like I don't even mind Marco Rubio in the sense that guy's an empty vessel too. Like at least Trump thinks for himself to a degree where he operates in a way where we can actually get some things done. Maybe I just need to be.
Well, and Kamala's campaign was nothing but fraud.
Right.
Just look at the way that she was spending campaign money. So she didn't care about how the campaign money was being spent. She definitely wasn't going to care how the tax money was being spent.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think that she would have been better on spending either. It's just a bipartisan spending spree is my biggest qualm. And until the side in power comes out against it, it will never stop. When the side that's for it calls out people like Massey for trying to stop it, it will always continue no matter what. And all of their words about shrinking government will ring hollow as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. If people want to learn more about you, where do they go, Benner?
DaveBenner.com for my books. Also follow me on Twitter at DBenner83 and subscribe to Liberty Vault on YouTube.
Sweet. All right, buddy. You take care down there in the South.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Both you, Jesse, and Jake, for doing this. Thanks for what you do up in Minnesota. You guys are awesome. So thank you.
Word.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh man, we've known each other so long, and we've had many conversations. Actually, when he comes into town, he still tries to come back once a year. It's just like we get right into all these freaking issues over a couple sips of bourbon, because he's a good Southerner now. That's what you drink down there, and here and everywhere, right? Except for in Canada, did you see that video of a Canadian liquor store taking off the bourbon bottles off the racks, and people are like, they already paid for these things. It's like there's no import, or there's no import fee. It's like what are you talking about? So, all right.
Are those happening? I've been hearing stuff on like TikTok about tariffs and like power getting canceled in Minnesota. That wouldn't affect us, would it? Like
power being canceled? In terms of electricity?
Yeah. Like that wouldn't reach down here.
Well, we don't get electricity from Canada.
Like in Minneapolis, or
no? Minneapolis's power mostly comes from the Sherco power plant,
So is that
coal
could be
power plant.
is that gonna be hitting like Duluth, like anything big?
No,
up north, or
we.
just the small towns?
I'm trying to think. Oh, I should know this by heart, but I'm not aware of us getting any Canadian power.
And all the headlines I've been seeing is that Canada caves to Trump on the tariffs. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, I am strongly on Benner's side on free trade, but it's one of those areas that's maybe a little bit more nuanced in the sense that we are getting a bad deal on our side, or the stuff that we export over there.
everything is negotiated. It's one of those
Right.
things that when you're doing a trade deal with a country, it's going to be tens of thousands of pages long, and so it can't simply be free trade. It's negotiated through every single detail.
Well,
And we have to put our country first. I'm not concerned about the Philippines. I don't care if we're not worried about the Philippine work conditions.
Yeah, but
we're
you
worried about
understand.
American work conditions.
Yeah, but you understand, if we all of a sudden have a tariff on imported goods, the price of those goods are going to go up, and that hurts our citizens. You understand that point, right?
It's a point of negotiation. And
No, I get that, but if it was to be implemented, you understand that that's going to increase the price of those goods.
to an extent, yeah.
Okay, so that's bad for America. Now, I agree with you on the
Not
negotiation
necessarily.
standpoint.
It's not necessarily bad for America. Because,
Sure it is.
No, because we want to be buying domestic as much as possible. We want to be able to have our own.
We want to
jobs
buy
here.
the best produced stuff at the cheapest price possible. That's what we want. Now, I agree, granted, yes, I do think we should. Well, if we want manufacturing in this country, what we really need to do is stop government being so big with all the regulations on our manufacturing. And I also think that, just generally decreasing the size of the government allows for more innovation and more industry and actually more money for consumers. That's the best path, right? That's not even being argued out in Congress because, remember, the difference between the Democrats and Republicans is very minuscule.
Right, but if China was closed down, America would be in a very, very tough spot right now because we are way too dependent upon one country, and that's the problem.
That's a good point, too.
It's not free trade anymore. We're dependent upon a communist country to give us all of our goods. That is not a good place for us
But
to
if
be.
consumers are freely choosing to buy,
China wants to sell to us more than we need to buy from them right now. That's a tough trade-off. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to play hardball with them. We have to throw tariffs on them. And, if China wants to come to the table and actually provide, some free trade with us, then there's opportunity.
But you understand that the goal should not be that we actually implement tariffs on them. It's that they get rid of their tariffs and we just have open free trade, right?
No, we're going to implement tariffs on communist countries that have slave labor that we cannot afford to compete with. Yes, if they are artificially lowering the price because we cannot compete with them under their conditions, then yes.
So
they need
even
to be
if they don't have a tariff on us, you're just saying we should equal the playing field off of all the other expenditure categories?
almost everything.
Well, you're the guy for bigger government on this one then. Jeez, I don't think government should do
well,
that.
on commerce, we have to play the game.
No, I
the
don't
game's
agree
going to
with you
get
at
played
all on
around
that.
us if we don't.
I don't agree with you at all on
This
that.
just- this
By the way,
just
I hope consumers choose if they have a problem with slave labor, which, by the way, they don't, because all the far leftists still use their iPhones.
Right.
Where do you think those are coming from? But I do hope that consumers I make that choice personally, by the way. When I see made in the USA, I'm more likely to buy that product knowing it's going to cost more money. I just emailed someone about buying a product, and I said, I'd rather buy this locally. And this was between them and someone else in Minnesota, but I was like, I'd rather buy locally. So people have that choice. Consumers have that choice. I don't want government getting involved in that choice.
It
But,
is.
they
are involved by allowing
But they
China
shouldn't.
in.
That's my argument, is they should not be allowed to make this choice.
Wait, so if I want to
we're-
buy something from
yeah.
China, the United States shouldn't stop me from doing that. If I'm like,
Well,
I want-
they like straight up do that, by the way. You can't buy a Persian rug. You can't buy a Cuban cigar. I mean, obviously that one's changed now. Like, consumers should be allowed to make their own decision, right? And they can judge. That's what I love about the marketplace, right? I love the marketplace in the sense that we get to choose with our dollars. It's the most democratic form of government, is using a dollar to choose. That's your voice, right? And wherever I want to spend it, even if someone else is offended by that choice, you should have that freedom to do it.
Are the tariffs, Jesse? Is the same argument for tariffs? Is it the same argument when it comes to Canada and Mexico as well?
What do you mean?
Like why are we implementing, or why are we threatening to implement tariffs on Canada?
They have
and Mexico?
tariffs on us because we have to. Yeah, it's the same thing in a certain way that they have tariffs on us.
Weren't they
so-
retaliatory to Trump saying, "I want to put taxes on you guys"?
Say what?
Weren't they retaliatory tariffs?
No,
No.
no.
Everyone's.
We're the ones getting screwed.
We get screwed. Our exporters get screwed in these other countries.
Okay. So how much were the tariffs before? Because they must have changed.
Depends on what you're talking
yeah,
about.
there's
but
all
yeah.
kinds of.
I think
big
Canada's got
categories.
25% tariffs on some of our or exported goods.
Interesting. I thought that Trump was saying it was because of the fentanyl stuff.
No, Trump's doing a grand negotiation. Like, certainly he wanted Mexico to start doing something on the border, right? He's using tariffs in that regard. Like, that's where it gets a little more complex. I mean, I'm against tariffs, but I'm not necessarily against the idea of negotiating better deals. And
Right,
Trump's
and
very
the
good at
president
that.
of Mexico should never be telling us what to do. We're telling Mexico what to do.
Well,
Well, I think neither one should be telling them what to do with their own countries.
right, you would think
It's like,
so.
how about we just have agreements that are mutually
we're
beneficial?
the superpower of the world. They're our neighbor. They listen to us.
Well, then why are we dependent on China?
Wait. Now you sound like a neocon. We're the superpower of the world. Everyone needs to listen to us. That's what gets us into quagmires like Ukraine. That's not how it should go. How about we actually do things that are mutually beneficial with our trading partners?
Well, I'm not.
That's a much
am
better
I
course.
suggesting we go to war with them? No, I'm telling them get in line with the plan, and that's exactly what they're proving that they will do.
Boy, you make that sound so terrible. I'd rather just have mutually beneficial arrangements.
Exactly, and that's why the Chinese love libertarians because it's one of those things where think about it. Would we prefer Mexico be a libertarian country? Of course, because we could run them over. It'd be so much easier. It's so much easier. Of course, you want people to be weak. You want other countries to be weak. That's why China would love it. Free trade isn't free trade with communists. Everything is manipulated by government, and so, it's so clear that.
Oh my God!
And as if it's not true, you're saying it like, oh, we're the superpower of the world. Yes, we are. We are the number one country in the world. And I'd rather keep it that way. I don't want China to become the number one. I don't want Russia to become the number one. I want America and our freedom values to be the number one country in the world.
Then we better get this frickin' debt under control, because right now we
Correct.
owe China. We owe everybody else.
Oh,
well,
please.
not just that. It's like, but you are acting as if we should superimpose things on other countries, and that's part of the problem and why we're going to get kicked out of the number one position. We go too far, and I just don't agree with that.
See, now I do kind of agree.
America, hold on one second. America should be the most prosperous, wealthy place and the country that loves freedom. But the reason that we should be a superpower is because we're so open to allowing the markets to exist here in this country, which is going to be more prosperous for all of us. Now, I agree with you on some points here, Jesse, in the sense that, yeah, I got a problem with Chinese companies, whatever that means, right? It's a communist country. Buying up like land in the United States or buying up
And
companies
we got
in the United
Americans who are
States.
doing that. We got all kinds of Americans who are investing in Chinese companies. I mean, Justin Amashi was brought up. He's a former U.S. representative. Where does he get his money? China. He gets it all from Chinese businesses. So we got all of these people in Congress and whatnot that are connected to China. And, that's why it's all BS. And, these people are loyal to China rather than the United States. Tim Walz, he's a perfect example. He loves China. And, China is our number one threat. And unless we start to act like it, we're going to get run over and they're going to take advantage of us. Because they have the advantage. I mean, let's be honest, a communist system where you're controlling your citizens and you have slave labor to do whatever you want, it's much easier to be in control of your economy in a system like that. So the United States is at a disadvantage with that, so we have to be able to play against them.
I was asked a question. How does Dawson feel about buying Chinese products that have stolen intellectual property from U.S. companies? If it's cheaper, I'm typically going to err that way, right? Like, we have so much tech in here that's just knockoff Chinese stuff because it's like, 70% cheaper than...
What do we have in here that's knockoff Chinese stuff?
That big old rig that I carry around with the camera on top,
okay.
that's Chinese.
That mechanical thing, yeah.
Batteries and stuff like that, where it just makes sense. I know that, when it comes to buying Chinese stuff, even Trump supporters like to do it with like the hats and everything. Like, it's impossible to escape. So like, I'm not
Not impossible,
picking
but yes,
straight.
it's very challenging. I agree with you on that one.
Like, what was the Democrats were?
But I think the
crapping
bigger
on it
point is
during
that we
the-
don't want China stealing our intellectual property as much as possible.
Good luck, I guess. I mean, how do you control any of that? I don't know.
Tariffs.
I don't think that the answer is to make everything more expensive for Americans.
Right. Well, I thought this was a very
Why did Biden keep them in place? Why was Biden keeping
Yes.
all of those tariffs in place? I mean, the leftists, they have no
well, the
idea what they're talking
leftists
about.
are generally supportive of tariffs. It's actually
No, they're not.
Yeah, they were.
flipped
They-
on the issue.
historically, they
They're
have
free
been.
trade. They're free trade. Get
They
run
have
over
not
by
been
China.
free trade
Yes, they
proponents.
are. That's what free
Historically,
trade is
no.
now.
The
They're
Democrats
not,
have
okay,
not been.
Not real free trade. They're for this free trade that's going on.
Yeah.
They're for getting run over by the rest
Yes,
of the world.
100%. But don't confuse that with
But
free
that's
trade.
that's how it is now. That's what they label it as. So you
Yeah.
have to fight it with it.
I
You
know, but on
I'm
this
for
show we
fair
don't.
trade.
On this
not
show we
free
don't play
trade.
their games, Jesse. Like
But-
we can call.
No, the language has been manipulated to the point
Exactly.
where that's
We
what
don't.
they mean
We don't
by it.
allow that language to get manipulated, right? That's
It
why I
is,
still
though.
correct ourselves on when saying it's a COVID vaccine. It's a COVID shot, right?
But there is no free trade, so that's why it's a scam.
All right, let's in there. You got something. Let's bring this up in the post show. You looked into Adam Schwartz. So you got some stuff on him. So let's talk about that in the post show, and we can carry on some of this conversation. If you are a premium subscriber, join us in the post show a minute after we're done on air on our public show. For everyone that's not a subscriber and you want to get the inside information on politics in Minnesota, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, or you know what, I can put it here on the stream too. You can go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us on the top, or you can go on Rumble and you'll see join us right on the Rumble page. You can see, you don't even have to be watching live. You can do it after the fact. And you can watch the post show after the fact too, once you become a premium subscriber. Anyhow, we'll love to have you as a premium subscriber. We'll be live with our post show. Thank you to our Rumble rants. We had failed candidate Brad Ganser. Did we have anyone else here? Brad Ganser, failed candidate. I think those were the two. Yep. And thank you to our great sponsors, Warren Westlaw, Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. And also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right, post show starts in 1 minute. Everyone else will see you back here on Tuesday. Take care.